Welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Arif Halaby along with Mr. Dr. Pilecki. Look, is that true, Mr. Doctor? I don't know if Dr. Pilecki.
You can
Mr.
just
Tom
call me
Pilecki.
Doctor.
The Doctor. If you guys have listened even for more than 5 minutes, your place for news, talk, and information, KHTS, is always about promoting and talking about some of the finer businesses, if you will, physicians, doctors, chiropractors, mechanics. You'll hear almost everything here on Total Financial Solutions because we talk about small business, we talk about financial life, ways to kind of manage your life. But what I wanted to get in today to talk a little bit about is some of the physical stress that we receive with financial issues. In other words, you can have a financial problem, but is there an issue behind the scenes that manifests itself in our neck, back, shoulders?
Yes.
Yeah, it's more than just for all of us, if you will, and I've been there, all of us have been there, I think, more than just, I have a headache. It's often about, oh my gosh, stress in my shoulders or my neck or my back can come from things like worries and financial stress. If I'm worrying a lot, where does it often hit? Is it different for each person?
It sure can be, and it's not so obvious. The problem is, once you start getting into stress physiology, the way your body works under stress, a bunch of stuff kicks in, and you may or may not have immediate symptoms, certainly not obvious. The things like your sleep patterns are interrupted, how many people sleepless nights, your energy level is definitely drained, how many people have to have a pot of coffee just to get going in the morning, or rely on some kind of energy drink or even something a little bit more illicit to get them through the day,
sure, right.
Much less have any energy to go out and have fun at the end of the night. And then your immune system is affected, and that can go either way, or an inappropriately exaggerated immune response shows up as allergies. Like, you go out and you start sneezing and your eyes water and like crazy. But, the interesting thing is...
Basically, that's like a hyper response.
Yeah,
but I
didn't know
that.
Not everybody on the street is. So it's... Yeah. And you go to the doctor and you say, I'm having allergies. And then they say, oh, well, you're allergic to this. Okay, you can take this medication to knock down your immune system, or we can desensitize you to those things. And you think about it for a second, and you're like, wait a second, why is this only happening to me? I mean, no one else in my family, it's not genetic, no one else in my house, it's not environmental, it's just something's up with me. And why do I have to take drugs during, this fall or spring or whatever it is? And the answer is because you're malfunctioning, and it could be, like you said, related to stress. And again, it's not so obvious. Most people shows up right around mealtime. Indigestion, huge problem.
Why? Why is that the case?
Well, okay, think about this. Your stress response is a survival mechanism. It's built into us. When we had to run away from bears and wolves and the bad guys or whatever, you kick into this emergency response. And when you're running for your life or fighting for your life, digestion isn't real important.
Sure, that's like a plan.
Priority list.
That's like a plan C.
Yeah,
let's
so
get our legs going here.
There's two parts essentially of the central nervous system, and one is the run or fight for your life, and the other one is, we tend to call that feed and breed. So it's fight or flight and feed and breed. So the kind of stuff that's associated with propagating the species,
sure,
and eating and digestion and relaxing, that's a separate part of the nerve system that almost completely shuts down when you're fighting for your life. Now, most of us can kind of navigate through and realize that we're not necessarily fighting for our lives every moment of existence, but low-level chronic stress kind of keeps that churning in the background, so it doesn't shut off digestion and reproduction and all that. It just compromises it and slows it down to the point where you start having things like, how come I have allergies? How come I can't sleep through the night without some kind of aid? How come I'm always, having energy issues or aches and pains?
All right, so let's talk about this a little bit, because by breaking it down, everybody's obviously a little different. Some people manifest themselves in different places. For me, if things aren't going well, sleep is the first thing that gets affected by me. My wife is not that way. It doesn't affect her the same way. my dad, I think, is this way because he seems to have similar. My mom, maybe not. So I think each person is a little differently. So for number one, it's sleep. Number two, it's going to be the ability to eat regularly.
Yeah.
Right? Because for a lot of people, you're just not feeling hungry, so you don't eat. And if you're not thinking about systematically eating, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and whatever.
That is actually an appropriate response to being stressed. Not wanting to eat is a good response because your system is shutting down digestion. This whole idea of comfort foods, when you're stressed out, I'll go for this food, like this type of food, whether it be,
chocolate or popcorn
or whatever.
Yeah.
That is an absolute just construction that you have created that is unreal, because you try to force food into a stress system thinking that it's going to give you what you need to calm down. It absolutely does the opposite. It causes major distress in your entire digestive system because none of the stuff that needs to be there in order to digest that food is present when you're under stress.
So let's talk about this with a lot of our listeners, myself, clients, all of us. We are out there dealing with financial stuff. Maybe you're dealing with a job loss. Maybe you're dealing with bills that are difficult to pay. Maybe you're dealing with business that's slowing down. Whatever it might be through this process. How do we handle this physically, both? I guess maybe emotionally and mentally. Maybe that's one part of it. But how do we physically deal with this so that we can sleep well, eat well, exercise well, have the energy? What is this? Give me step one.
Okay. Step one is you need to precondition yourself, just like anything else. If you go to the gym, you're going to be sore. You're going to hate the experience for the first several weeks of really trying to change things. But you wouldn't. All right. Let's look at it like a fight. Let's say, most people will never get in a fight in their lives. But if you train like a boxer doesn't walk into the ring and get pummeled. The boxer trains something like 1,000 minutes for every minute that they're going to be in the ring for. So you have to prepare. You have to get ready for this stuff. So stress, how do you prepare for stress? Well, I'm a martial artist. So most people get into martial arts for the skill of physical self-defense, but the reality is, overwhelming likelihood, unless you're someone in law enforcement, you may need that skill once or maybe twice in your entire life. You're not going to go out looking for a fight, hopefully.
Yeah, unless you're hanging out at a bar every Friday night.
But part of the thing you learn in martial art is not just the physical skill of martial art, but the emotional, the mental skill of martial art. And that is, okay, so imagine you're getting mentally or emotionally attacked by something. If you have not prepared yourself and come from a strong, centered, balanced place, it's going to have a devastating effect on you. So how do you prepare for stress? Well, most of the stresses that you're going to face in this current environment, in our culture, in our society, are not a bear or a wolf or a bad guy chasing you. They are emotional and mental stresses that you're going to have to deal with. So one of the things you're going to need to deal with is, how do I be prepared for this? And one of my things, my morning ritual is I go out for the walk, which is important. First thing in the morning is get moving, get all the juices flowing, get movement in the joints and the muscles, and detoxify with plenty of fluids. That's all physical stuff. And we can get into that in a minute, but mentally is the most important thing. So what is the opposite of stressed behavior? And that is absolute bliss. You can't be stressed and be grateful for everything that's happening in your life at the same time. You can't figure out how to find bad things in other people and not like them when you're focusing on how grateful you are for all the love in your life, the love of your immediate family, your immediate friends, and then you start circling, making that circle bigger. I call it the love NATO. So first thing, while you're walking in, you're in a peak energized state, you start thinking about all the things that you really have to be grateful for, and you make it simple to start with. It's just that, man, I get to live here. I get to live. It's summer every day of the year here, essentially.
Right.
And especially first thing in the morning when you can get out and you can be in the fresh air, you can be in the sunshine, and it is relatively fresh air. That I'm grateful for, because it wasn't always like that here in Southern California, and it's pretty good air quality first thing in the morning. You're in the sunshine, and it's not too cold, it's not too hot, it's not too rainy. I'm really grateful for that, and that's an easy thing to be grateful for.
So let's go through this, because I think each of us have something that we're stressed about every
Sure.
day. And look, a little stress is not bad. I think we have to be on edge. We have to be in some sort of peak. What's the right word? Almost like an awareness and preparedness, so that when opportunities occur in front of us, when we see them happen, we take advantage of them.
Right.
So I think there's a level of awareness and a hyper awareness that we have to have. But my biggest concern is for some folks, when they're having tough times, or they're not sure about a job transfer, or they're starting a new job and they're worried. Obviously, physically staying fit is going to be the answer, and a lot of people have put that on the back burner. They're overweight, their cholesterol's not on check without medication, their blood pressure's not on check without medication.
Sure.
So you think step one, get out and move every morning.
Yeah.
Walk,
and here are
exercise, something.
Yeah, here's some caveats to that. Most people, unfortunately, listening to this right now, when they wake up, they're going to be stiff. They're going to be sore. They're not necessarily want to get up and get started moving. All those things are big red flags as far as I'm concerned. Because the way the body works, you are loaded with the natural anti-inflammatory. It's at its highest level first thing in the morning. So if you're starting off your day and you're stiff and you're sore and you ache and you don't want to get out of bed, that's a big warning sign, and it's not addressed in any of those commercials you see on TV about, ask your doctor if this is right for you, because it's not yet a medical emergency that's going to need lifelong medication. But it is a big red warning flag that your body isn't as good as it's supposed to be. So how do you deal with that? I'm biased. I'd say you call me and we get to the bottom of it, because I'm not going to just treat this symptom by saying, oh, here, drink a pot of coffee when you start getting. I'm going to find out what is not right, what is not moving right, what is not functioning right, whether it be chemical or physical.
Dr. Pilecki is a chiropractor, but much more than that here in Santa Clarita in Newhall. His job is much more of a holistic health, and I don't like that word holistic, because it often, for some anyway.
How about functional?
Yeah, maybe a functional physician or a functional doctor, maybe. The key components to your particular livelihood as a person is to make sure that the stress in your life is built and done in a manageable way. You're going to have stress. We are going to have stress. It's going to be different things. I almost got hit yesterday by a lady who didn't even realize that she should have stopped at a stop sign. It was pretty darn stressful.
Sure.
Thankfully, quick reactions, and obviously seeing her out of the corner of my eye, and thankfully nobody was to my right, and I was able to get out of the way and all of that. But that's a reaction, that's a response without thinking. If my mind had to say, oh, here comes a lady in a white van, slow down, turn to the right, slam on your brakes, whatever you have to do, it's too late. You're done. You're hit.
Yeah.
So there needs to be an instant reaction that we have to these stressors when they come in. And in the old days, something like that would happen, and we would get nervous, and our hands, that adrenaline would rush through. Today, I'm able to manage that a lot better. I'm not sure if it's just a lifelong training in that world or what, but that doesn't happen anymore. It's wow, okay, well, that was close. All right,
well, I hope I can take partial credit for that.
For sure.
Because when you take away these restrictions, let's just keep it real simple. When you came to me, you were jacked up.
Oh,
I mean, you were not,
put it nicely,
not moving real well. You were in constant pain, and that in itself, everything that happens to you in real time, in the real world, has to be filtered through all of that before your central nervous system even has a chance to process it and figure out what to do next. By stripping all of that away, you not only open up the resources, but you reduce reaction time dramatically. So now it's not a matter of thinking through a process. It's your natural response, which is survival. It happens automatically.
There's I think a multiple component part to this. One of those, of course, is that ability to physically do it. But we are fed. I mean, imagine for a minute if you took gasoline mixed with water, mixed with apple juice, and you put that in your car.
Yeah.
How long is your car going to last? Now, you might say, but water's good.
Yeah.
Water's amazing. Yeah, apple juice is good in certain doses and times, and it's wonderful. It tastes. But both of those are not designed for that machine.
Absolutely.
So we might say, I like chocolate cake. Hey, I love potato chips, and sometimes that might be okay. But what is right for our machine, for our body, food-wise, there is a natural component that reduces stress. And I'm sharing this with you folks because retirement, I cannot tell you now, this next week will be 20 years in business for us. 20 years. In the last 20 years, we've taken people that were 42 years old, 47 years old with a teenager and a toddler and turned that into now grandparents, people that are 65, 69 years old with grandkids. Kids have already gone to college. They've got a life. We have seen a metamorphosis of folks live through life. Those that have prepared and worked with us through multiple stages, usually every 3 to 6 months we get together with folks close to retirement anyway. And in that window of time, part of the challenge is to reduce their anxiety about retirement, making sure they understand what's possible, what can really take place. That yes, hiccups have happened along the way, 2008, recessions, depressions, economic issues, job losses, etc. But the balancing of their life through a stressful reduction, I think, is key. So it is not just about moving. It is about moving, but it's also about food. Tell me a little bit about that. You have some experience in the food and nutrition world.
Sure.
A couple of ideas that we can have for nutrition.
I love your analogy of putting apple juice and water mixed in with the gasoline, because the real key is finding the most appropriate fuel for your metabolic engine. And this is something that is not discussed on any of the headline news or the diet crazes or any of that stuff. But it is the most important factor of getting nutrition right. Every month, or at least quarterly, there's going to be a new best-selling diet out there that everybody's crazy about. And a lot of people are just fed up with riding this roller coaster of temporary results. And the bottom line is there's a shred of truth to every single one of these diet plans. The problem is it going to be appropriate for you as an individual? And the answer is that invariably, 1/3 of the time, a food is going to be right for you. 1/3 of the time. 1/3 of the time, it's not going to have any positive result whatsoever. And 1/3 of the time, it's going to actually be damaging to you. The key is, how do you know? How do you know before you even do anything, is this, what third of the population do I fall into? And that's the trick, and that's part of the functional work that we do, determining what really works for you. Because I can tell you right now, all right, everybody should have less carbohydrates. Everybody should have more saturated fat. Everybody should have more high-quality proteins in their diet. Well, that may be okay, but a certain group of people on either side of that equation, that's going to be devastating information for you. If they try to apply that to their lives, they're going to be miserable.
Right. And that's interesting. I had a friend who goes through different diet fads, if you will, over time. And one of them, and like you said, there's components of truth in each one of them. One of them was the blood type diet. Blood, I don't know if that's right.
Yep.
The blood type, yeah.
Exactly right.
And this particular blood type should have chicken, and this one shouldn't, as an example. validity to that? I don't know. What do you know about that?
There is some validity, but there's big holes in it as well. Like I said, blood type takes into consideration certain things that most diets never do, and that is trying to be specific to you, which I really appreciate in the blood type work. They've also done a lot of background research on what kind of allergies are associated with different blood types, so it's pretty good. Here's the big hole in it. The blood type diet is essentially your genetic predisposition towards a certain type of food.
Okay.
Not bad. It's not a bad place to start. Here's the problem with it. You put an Eskimo in LA, their stresses are going to be different. Their environmental factors are going to be different. If that Eskimo just eats whale blubber and lives in LA for the rest of their life, they're going to have some problems with that. But you put them back in their natural environment, and they can live on whale blubber their entire life and never have heart disease or anything. In fact, it's one of the best things going. Saturated fats are one of the best things going for preventing heart disease and cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases.
And that's because of their environment, because of the cold, because of the...
Exactly. So it's not just genetics, but it's environmental factors, and most importantly, it's real-time stress factors that no predetermined, prepackaged, pre-planned diet program can address.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing. So whenever you hear everybody should take this, everybody should do that, first of all, it's not going to be appropriate to 60% of the population off the start. So it's only real information for 30% of the people, and it's only real information for them under certain circumstances.
So one of the things that I want to talk about when we return here in just a second is some of the manifestations of this. In other words, when I sit down and I say, I get it. I'm just not able to eat 3 meals a day or fresh fruits every day. So, but I have low energy, or I get anxious about things, or I'm worried about my kids more than maybe I should be. Is there a particular regimen, generally speaking, that you can say, work out a little bit each day, eat this kind of food, avoid this kind of food when we come back? See if you can get me a little bit of specifics.
Sure.
You're listening to me, Arif Halaby, with special guest Dr. Pilecki, one of the best chiropractors right here in Newhall. We're fortunate to have him close by, actually. We'll be back in just a minute. I'm Arif Halaby, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Arif Halaby, along with special guest Dr. Pilecki, Dr. Tom Pilecki. Tom, look, you've been a chiropractor for how many?
25 years.
25 years. You look like you're not even 25.
Thank you.
Whatever it is, it's working. Dr. Pilecki's been a chiropractor 25 years. He's been an educator. He's taught other chiropractors techniques and ways to be less invasive, not the crazy cracking stuff that you might know of as a chiropractor. Very subtle differences. In fact, not only has helped me out, but of course my family as well and friends. Let me give you his phone number because he can help you as well. 661, of course, right here in Newhall on Lyons Avenue at Peachland. 753-9340. 753-9340. Grab a pen and paper. I'll give it to you here before the end of the hour. Okay, Dr. Pilecki, a couple of things. Being anxious, sometimes people are a little more nervous. They get a little more edgy.
Sure.
And that often has to do with financial issues that we have in our lives. Give me one or two things that we can do that's practical, that we can start right away.
Sure. Like I said, a lot of people start off their day with a big dose of caffeine. And if you are going to partake in caffeine, you need to stop by noon. I do a lot of green tea because there's a lot of good health benefits. I even do green coffee. And there's some health benefits to that too. The key is you don't want to keep having that metabolic disruptor going all day long. So if you're going to do it before noon. Second, stop eating by 7 p.m. if at all possible. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people who work and commute and don't get home until after 7, but really try to stop eating by 7. If you're going to have a big meal, try to make it lunch if possible. And again, if that doesn't work into your schedule, you've got to figure out some workarounds for that. But the key to my one bit of advice that I can give you is stop eating by 7 and be in bed by 11. When I mean in bed, I don't mean watching TV. I mean be asleep. Be fast asleep by 11. Ideally, you want to be asleep by 10, but I know that's asking an incredible amount for most people. So if you 7-Eleven, if you have no more food by 7 and are asleep by 11, you're going to reduce stress in your life substantially.
And a lot of that stress, folks, is ways, for me, I have to find where to put things. I have to look and say, where's my, how am I going to deal with this problem? So I'm often quiet. Each person is different. And husband and wife, I've had relationships in the past when I was younger where my girlfriend would say, so what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Talk to me. Why don't you? I'm like, look. Enough. I'll talk to you when I'm ready. Ladies, that might be the way that you communicate, or that maybe you communicate with your girlfriends, and that shows a way or a reason that you love them and you care about them. But for some guys, we just need time. I come home, give me 15 minutes, a half an hour I want to be greeted, of course. Hello, da-da-da. But then give me time to settle down. Give me time to put stuff away, to change, to relax, and then I'm alive again. Especially, folks, if you have somebody driving from a long distance, right? If you have people fighting in traffic for an hour, then they come home. Give them time to unwind. They were just 6 inches to a foot away from somebody traveling at 60 miles away, 60 miles an hour, and we're almost doing a high wire act, if you will, speaking in an automobile. And was that close to dying? Now, it's not on the top of their head every single day, but if you're driving and you're passing somebody on the opposite direction, or you're 3 feet away from somebody on the yellow line driving down the 405, that is a very stressful situation. You don't have to move and you can feel tired from driving from here to Las Vegas.
Sure.
So I think that works for me. But Tom, you start to see people eating things that react differently with their bodies. I found that when I'm I have a shake every morning that has it's a vegan type shake, and it has an ultimate meal in it, which is a great program. I love the ultimate meal. Not everybody can do it. I love it, but it's a ground up, real, whole, organic food. It's a way to start your day. It seems to kind of level out my blood sugar, but eating right, blood sugar, cholesterol, tell me how important that is.
It's critical. Getting the right fuel mix in your system is going to have such an amazing change in the way that you perceive stress. Because one of the main stressors is it's coming internally. It's the cells crying out for what they really need. And you can only process that as an emergency. So before anything happens, before you deal with driving in LA, or your wife is mad at you for whatever reason, or your boss just gave you a deadline, or if you're self-employed, you don't know how you're going to make the budget this month. Before you deal with any of that, the internal environment has to be as calm, as balanced, as highly resourceful as possible. Because if that's stress to begin with, any one of those things can put you over the edge into a medical emergency. And speaking of retirement and stress in finances, medical expenses are one of the top 10, if not the top 2, reasons for people getting in serious financial problem.
I see this happen time and again. The reason that we make some bad financial decisions for us and our family is because we are not nutritionally rested. Sure. Right? Where we physically are rested and nutritionally we're not fed. You're not peak in your thinking process. You're not making the right decisions. So the financial decisions that you're going to make in your life, folks, have to be driven down making sure you take care of your body first. Ask many very wealthy people sitting in hospitals right now in their 50s, 60s, 70s. They realize they cannot buy their health.
Yeah, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, it's
can't.
Yeah, done. Right, folks? These are important components to building a financially free life, is to realize that you need somebody like Dr. Pilecki. Ready? Here's the phone numbers I promised again, 753-9340. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Pilecki.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, folks. Your show is when?
Monday mornings at 11.
Monday mornings at 11 a.m., 753-9340. That's Dr. Tom Pilecki right here in Newhall on Lyons Avenue. Thanks for listening, folks. I'm Arif Halaby on AM 1220, Total Financial Solutions, Save for Money Hour on AM 1220 KHTS.